Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 55 of Behind the Camera at Dandy Games, the podcast where we shine a light on the storytellers, the creatives, and the voices behind the camera. This week, my guest is speaker, speaking coach, and personal mentor, Marianne Hickman. We dive into the world of public speaking, exploring the different styles that speakers can use, the impact of truly connecting with an audience, and the importance of knowing your why before you ever step onto a stage. Marianne also shares insights from her own journey as a coach, along with practical advice that can help anyone become more confident and authentic in how they communicate. If you'd like to support the show, head over to the About section where you'll find a link to my Linktree. This has everything from social media pages and merch to the website and much more. Like, share, follow, comment, or leave a rating. Every little bit goes a long way and I truly appreciate it. Now, here's the interview. Marianne, welcome to Behind the Camera at Dandy Games. Absolute pleasure to have you on the show. How are we doing today?
Oh, I always like to say blessed and highly favored. I just revised my mission statement yesterday, and it's been going off in my brain to have more fun doing what I'm doing and bring more humor into everything. So that's, you know what? I'm having a great day.
I love to hear that. And I love that as a mission statement as well, because it's something that you can just sort of take into all walks of life, whether it be personal or professional, whatever. And I think it's just important. And it's important to kind of be mindful of these things as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really is. I mean, because, we're diving right into it, but we, as human beings, we tend to generalize a lot. We use these superlatives of always and never, and my life is so hard. I used to say that. My life is so hard. And it really wasn't fair. It wasn't accurate. I didn't have a hard life. I had hard moments.
Yeah.
And to think that I had a hard life, it wasn't true. I mean, it was this doomsday take on everything, and it invited more of those moments that I didn't want. And I remember my mom, she was the one that asked me to ask my questions differently. I was shoveling my driveway one time, and she said, I was complaining to her. I said, "Why is my life so hard?" And she said, "Well, there's no good answers to that question."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "You're right. Oh my gosh." So she's like, "What if you asked a different question?" And I've been upgrading my questions ever since. And now it's things like, why am I so good at being strong through those moments? And how am I so good at blessing others? And just these questions that have better answers, even if you don't think of them forefront, you have to be a little conscious about it. It really improves the now I'm going to generalize again, it does improve the quality of your life overall.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's an interesting point you say. It's like, it's not necessarily a hard life, it's hard moments, because it really kind of puts into perspective hindsight being 20/20, doesn't it? Because at the time you know, whatever it is you're going through, it's very much a case of there's no end to this. This is just this is how it feels. This is what I'm used to right now. But like the moment that everything changes and then you feel much better about life, you kind of just think, wow, what was I even struggling with at the time? Like I don't even remember. It's a very interesting sort of thing that we go through as people, I think.
Oh yeah, no, totally. These moments where, gosh, I like to think of it this way. I heard this once, and I wish I could remember the source, but who knows who it is. But they said your problems right now that we complain about are the prayers that you had 5 years ago.
Yeah, like if that doesn't sum it up, I don't know what does. You know, I love that. I've never heard that one before, but I love that. You know, it's and maybe it comes down to like human nature in terms of not necessarily wanting more, but never being too content in the situation that you're in at one point in time. Because whether you want to look at it in like a self-improvement kind of way, people are always wanting to improve themselves. They're always wanting kind of, what's the next goal? What's the sort of next thing I want to achieve? What do I want to be? Everyone has their own kind of like their rolling 5-year plans, which really just becomes, you know, it just becomes like a 30-day plan really every single time. And it just always keeps changing on a rolling basis.
Well, have you ever written them down? Have you ever done that exercise where you write down the 5-year plan and put it on paper?
I haven't, no, to be honest with you. And For me personally, I think it's because I would definitely fall into the camp of it just being a 30-day rolling plan.
Yeah.
Not gonna
Well,
lie, like.
no, but there's something to it though. And I think you're totally spot on with that. And what we're talking about is actually a law of physics. It's
Mhm.
called the law of entropy, which basically means without infusing work into something, it will just on its own, it will fall apart. You know, you have a house and nobody lives in it, it starts to degrade. You have a tree that falls down without it doing the work to bring in the nutrients, it decomposes and falls apart. So
Mhm.
that's the same with physics as it is with people. Without this work, like you talked about, have the 5-year plan, have something, it just dissolves. I had this experience where I was in a mentoring, and I'm a mentoring junkie. I pay for mentors all the time. But I did this exercise where we wrote down our 5-year plan and they made us do it. They were like, stop workshop. We're not moving on until you do this. And so we wrote everything down, and then we did this in-depth step, which was so cool. They said, all these dreams that you have, these things you want to have, I want you to go to Google and I want you to look up how much it costs
Mhm.
every month for that. Right. So one of my big things was, oh man, I wish I was wealthy enough to get my daughter a math tutor. Okay, how much does that cost a month? Oh, it could be $150 a month. Okay, cool, good to know. And I did that with all of these things. I did that with the washer and dryer that I wanted. I did it with the house that I wanted. I did it with I have this dream one day of owning an island. I think it'd be so cool. Like just to have all of the family be able to get together there, and I don't have to worry about can they get work off or not, because how cool would it be to just pay for them to have time off work and cover their paychecks for that period and just come
Yeah.
play, right? And so I wrote it all down and then I promptly forgot about it. Put it in a drawer, shoved it away. And I had written down the monthly payment. I knew the monthly on everything. I was like, oh, I did Google shopping for an island. I was like, oh, I didn't know islands for sale. They're like $2 million. That's not that bad. So I like at a 5% loan or whatever, how much would it cost? Anyway, I did all the math. And I was like, okay, so I totally forgot about it, went about my life. And then I think about 4 to 5 years later, I was teaching this to somebody else and I found this journal. I found this list of things that I wanted because I wanted to teach them the same thing I had gone through. And as I pulled it out, all of the things except the island, I don't have that one yet. All of the things on that list I was like, oh my gosh, I have the math tutor. I got the washer and dryer that I wanted, which seemed big at the time. I got the house that I wanted. I was like, what happened? Because I didn't plan for any of this consciously after I had written it down. And it all came to fruition, which gets me really excited about the island, by the way. But this 5-year thing, however long it is, 30 days, 5 years, I
Yeah.
think there's something to be said about taking it from the brain, which is, if we can think about it, we can't touch it. But the first way you can touch it is to write it down, make it
Yeah.
physical, just in ink on paper. It's the first way to touch it. And then I think our brains just get to work on it. I don't know all the physics or the woo-woo science, but I know that it works.
Yeah, that's incredibly fascinating because to me it sort of says that like it almost activates your subconscious in a way. Like you said, you wrote it all down, put it in a drawer, forgot about it, and then all of a sudden you started just kind of when you revisited it sometime later, it was like, wow, I've actually been kind of working towards this, but not even realizing. And it's interesting to me because when you like, obviously everybody has like their aspirations, everything they want to do, but it almost seems like a pipe dream for most people, or the majority of people, I would say, actually, because but until you write it down and then, like you say, Google it. Like I would have never have thought to Google something like that. It's like, oh, I want to do this, Google it. Like unless you're actively doing something and you want to kind of know more about the logistics of it, for example. Um, like then you realize, oh, this is actually kind of a lot simpler than I ever would have thought. Like, I love the dream of buying an island as well. That's just, and the fact that the fact that you can just willy nilly go into Google, search for islands for sale, and it's just like right there. I love that. Like that's just so like, like again, I never would have thought of that, and I definitely know how I'm going to spend the rest of my evening after this conversation.
It's really fun. It's so fun. Like my daughters and I do the same thing. When COVID shut everything down, we were about to take a trip to Disneyland. And when I was a kid, Disneyland was something the rich kids did, and I wasn't one of the rich kids
Mhm.
growing up, right? I find myself incredibly emotionally and wealthy now, and even though the finances go like this, just like they do for everybody else. But this was a big milestone for us because like we're finally have enough in the bank account to where we could do this. And I go on, and this is what is it? It's like maybe April or March of 2020. And I'm going on and I'm looking at ticket prices. I'm literally on Disney's website, right? And I'm watching the ticket availability get stripped away. They're like less and less days available. And then I remember refreshing the page. And for the first time ever, Disney said our park is closed for COVID.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? So we've been kind of planning and replanning since then. It's been 5 years and we haven't taken our trip yet, but we've dreamed a little bigger since then too. So right now our Google research, I have Google notifying me with flight notifications all the time. We're gonna head to Paris and take the kids there
Oh,
instead.
brilliant.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's this willingness to say, okay, but what's the best that could happen?
Mhm.
Instead of what's the worst that could happen? What's the best that could happen? What if I just make room for that and think about it being a possibility, not with any fear or shame or I can't. It's dousing it with excitement and
Yeah.
saying, what if we did that?
Yeah, of course. And just because something is a what if doesn't necessarily mean it's unattainable or unachievable, because it's, I think it just kind of opens up the sort of scope of thought as to what you could do with something, whether it be like, for example, what if we went to a different Disney World, but made it a bit of a bigger trip? Or what
Yeah.
if we, branched out? Like, it's just opening your mind for different possibilities. And because it's actually kind of funny you say that, because like on a personal note, that sort of kind of happened with my wife and I whenever we were
Oh,
planning our
did it?
honeymoon. So whenever my wife and I, before we got married, we were planning on our honeymoon, and we were thinking of Canada, and now we had everything down to a T planned out. And it was like it was like the dream holiday. We were going to go from like Vancouver all the way over to the East Coast to Nova Scotia. And then we had help with the travel agent, and then we got massively priced out of it. And not
Oh
even not
no.
even to the point actually, it was, we were just like, yeah, that's not happening. Like, it's so unattainable. It was like, maybe we'll just sort of dip into it every few years, we'll do a different city, and then we'll just kind of, that's what we'll do. And then we were just kind of thinking, like, what do we do instead? So we were like, well, what about Japan? And because we've seen like a video come up on social media, and it was like, now to me, I would look at that and think, I've been in the UK, like it's the other side of the world. It's like 9 hours away, and it's like, to me, it's kind of like that's the pipe dream in comparison to somewhere that's easier to get to than like Canada. So looked into it, and it was like something like a third of the price.
No
So we were
kidding.
just like, let's do this. And it was something that, in the back of my mind, somewhere I'd always wanted to go. And it was just like the simplest of all things. And it was only just for a matter of looking into it and doing a little bit of research. And there we go. It was like, and I'd go back tomorrow if I could.
Did you go to Japan or Disney World Japan or both or?
We did do Disney. We did Disneyland in Tokyo, and it was incredible. Oh my god, it was like okay, that's it's only the second Disneyland I've ever been to, but
Uh-huh.
I mean, as a 30-year-old at the time, it was incredible. Like, I loved it. And like, this was like the sort of middle of September last year, but they had just opened up like their water park there, so like
Uh-huh.
all of the attention went there. So like the actual Disneyland park itself was like really sort of quiet in comparison, and it was amazing. And it's the sort of thing, it's like, these things that you never think you would do in your lifetime, but then all of a sudden it kind of happens, and it's like, I have a lot to show for this. Like, oh my god.
Yeah. It's like you're making your bucket list as you cross it off, the things you never knew that you wanted to do. That's the coolest feeling.
Yeah, 100%. And then when you realize how simple like it is to do these things too, it's really kind of, it's really life affirming and really enlightening and everything. And no, obviously yourself, being a speaker and a speaking coach, like this is the sort of thing that I'm sure you would give to your clients and people who approach you in terms of so like, tell us about that. So the types of clients that you have, like, are these people like sort of fellow entrepreneurs, or are these people just sort of anyone in business, generally speaking?
So speaking is this funny thing. Speaking is really people think of it in two categories. They think of the motivational speaker, and these are the kind of people that take speaker fees, and they, you write them a $15,000 check or a $20,000 check. They come and deliver for an hour, and then they hop on a plane and go home. And then there is the every other kind of speaker, which is the corporations are hiring them, the associations are hiring them to come in and deliver value, not just motivate. That's a huge part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But these people are the entrepreneurs that are using speaking to grow their business. And really, if they're not necessarily two different kinds of speakers, they're two steps on the same speaker ladder. So I work with people that are entrepreneurs. They use speaking to grow their business. They also use speaking to motivate. They get paid by corporations and associations to come in and speak to their people hourly. But there's so much, if you're looking to use speaking to grow your business, which you should, there's so much to be said about speaking for free in order to gather new customers or gather leads for your business and bring those people in, and then they can buy your programs. But I know that some speakers don't want to do that. Some speakers are like, I just want to come in, fly in and drop my value and hop out. And I was like, that's great. We can do that. And the fundamentals of speaking and delivering an impactful speaker generally the same. But you're leaving 60% of your revenue on the table if you're not allowing people to continue to work with you after you're done. If you just hop on a plane and you hop off, that's fine. You can. But most people, if I were to go to anyone, I said, do you want an extra $1 million? I don't know of anyone that would say no, because most of us have that 5-year plan, and that 5-year plan needs funding. And usually $1 million is just to start, just to the seed of it, right? Millions actually, when you think about how big we're able to dream, it's not that much, but it's significant if it's your first. So that's what we do. And what we do is train them how to speak on stage so that the delivery is in the way that they want the audience to receive it. And my husband and I talk about this all the time. I'm a student. I would say I'm not a master of communication. I'm a student of communication. and it's because no one's perfect at it. I oftentimes have discussions with my husband because we were brought up very differently, as most people are. And I think about, what is my responsibility in a conversation as the communicator? And I go back to everything my dad taught me as a pilot. I started getting my students' pilot's license, and communication in the air and from air to ground is life or death.
Yeah.
Many times. And in fact, Malcolm Gladwell's written a book about this. But the communication has to be so clear so that your listener understands everything that you meant for them to understand. And so I think about that in terms of my marriage. Did my husband understand what I meant for him to understand? Or did I cloud it up with different tones, different body language? When I'm communicating to an audience, am I communicating effectively? Does it reach them? Does it connect with them the way that I meant to? And then there comes this little God element in it where I say, okay, help me deliver to the audience exactly what I mean to, but also exactly what you need to. Help me leave room for that. Help me leave room for your translations, because you're going to do it better than me. And if I can do that, and if I can train people to do that, on the back end, I'm saying, does your body language match your tonality? Does that match your words? And we're crafting their keynote so that all of those things are supporting the message. And then from there, we're saying, okay, now that your keynote is life-changing, let's make it lucrative as well. We like to do that because then we can keep doing what we love. So that's what we do, my husband and I.
Yeah, that's incredibly fascinating, because like communication just generally is a fascinating topic to me because of the interpretations that the listeners can have when it comes to like people who you're speaking to. Like, I know you say you have to communicate things in a way that your listeners are going to just understand it first time, and that they're sold on the idea. For example, they understand it, they don't have any questions, which I think you kind of have to have that down to an art, because like I say, everybody interprets things in like their own different way. So say then you take to the stage and you're delivering a presentation. How long into your presentation do you have to like read the room and be able to kind of like change your delivery based on that?
I hope that speakers are watching the audience backstage. Because they have to watch that audience before they come on stage. I spent many, many years as an MC, so I was the glue that held the event together between the speakers. And it was my job to nurture and take care of the audience like a mother with 700 baby chicks. We just needed to make sure the energy was high. We need to make sure the stage was warm. for the next speaker. And we need to make sure that the next speaker gets a proper introduction when they come on the stage. So I hope every speaker, the pros, the greatest speakers know this. They will peek backstage or they'll watch the audience in the green room, and they're not necessarily watching the speaker that's before them. They're listening to them, but they're watching the audience, and they're watching how the audience is responding. They're watching for people on their phones. They're watching for people that we used to call black holes, the energy suckers in the room who are there with folded arms and don't want to participate. Well, those are your people, by the way, because they're there, but they're stubborn. We love those people. So your first interaction with the audience is before they even see you. Because if your first interaction with them is when you step on stage, you're not going to feel relevant. You can't refer to the previous speakers. You can't acknowledge what the audience has been sitting there all day. You can't acknowledge what they've been learning. If you are speaking at an event, you should be aware of the marketing for the event so that you know what the audience's expectations are. Why did they come there? What was a landing page that they saw? And then when you hop on stage, your first job isn't to show off how cool we are. We already know that. We're awesome. We're on stage. Check. The first job of us as speakers is to remind the audience how cool they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do that by asking questions like, what'd you come for? Why are you here? Are you getting what you came for? How many of you are curious about this? How many of you want to talk about this? And I find that oftentimes I throw out my keynote. I'll throw away my slides. I won't even use the clicker. I'll just chuck it because it's not always calibrated to what the audience ends up needing versus what I prepared. I may be asked to come speak about leadership, but I'll ask the audience, and then my slides are suddenly relevant. Mm-hmm. And the keynote is so much more impactful.
Oh, I can imagine, especially if you're going off like sort of the audience reactions, the interactions, and everything. Then it almost like acts as like active listening whenever you're having a conversation. Sometimes like things are, you find that things might be covered in like future slides, or it's just like it helps itself, doesn't it? So based around that, then how would you compare being on the stage to like doing like a digital presentation, which in some ways digital sounds way worse because let's say you're on like a Zoom call with 500 people and you're looking at the screen and all you can see is just your own camera and your presentation and everyone else's cameras off. You can't really go from body language. You can't really go from any interaction. How do you get past that as a speaker with delivering a presentation?
That's a great question. And it requires a certain level of skill because there is this digital interface that now we have to translate communication through, right? Mm-hmm. This is my favorite way. Now, I'm not here to make everyone speak like me. I'm here to make everyone speak as good as they can. But my favorite way is to do this. So when I hop on a digital stage, I like to ask people to turn their cameras on. Yeah. Just turn it on. If you're going pee, then put your camera face down and turn it on when you're done. Like, I don't care, but turn it on. It's silly for us to pretend that we're not all real people, right? So asking people to turn their cameras on is just a way to make it real. I don't care if you're driving, you're here, just be as present as you possibly can. And then I ask for a next level of engagement. I'm like, hey, listen, if you're listening to this at home, I want you to get the most value per minute. So if you can shut your doors and turn off notifications, let's jam with each other. Let's be present, because I did that. I'm giving you 100%. And usually I don't have to persuade people to do this, but I like to say it in the beginning. And then I love to do audience interaction. You and I are interacting one-on-one digitally right now. Yep. And it's great. So when I'm speaking, I like to do the same thing. I like for people to raise their hand on camera. I ask that all the time. I say, throw a 1 in the chat if this is real for you, if this is hitting for you, right? Put me in the chat or whatever it is. And I watched the chat light up, and Andy, I have seen some crazy things happen. Some people have their cameras on that shouldn't have their cameras on. I have seen the weirdest stuff coming to the chat. Like, dude, that I have seen way too many purple Speedos in my life. Okay, we'll just put it that way. It was weird. I mean, it's a story I can tell now, but that being said, have a moderator if you have a pretty big room. Anything over like 50 people, have a moderator that can kick the weirdos out. But just act like you're on a cell phone call or a FaceTime call with your friend from the UK, or act like you're on a FaceTime call with your brother who lives in Boston or whatever it might be, because we never talk to an audience. Mm. It doesn't matter how many people are there. We never talk to an audience. We're just talking to one person, 700 at a time.
Yeah, it's a really good way to put it. Like, I suppose as well, because like, if you're delivering a presentation, whether it's to 1 or 700 people, it's going to be the same anyway. And obviously, there's an element of it that's dictated by the response you get and the interaction you get from your audience, but the general bulk of it, that's going to be the same, no matter how many people you have. Like, and
Mhm.
like, so then, like, let's revert it back then to being on stage. Like, is there an element that's easier to get past because you have the people in front of you and you can see reading their body language, or is there, because it's live, does it seem a bit more daunting, like, just to sort of revert back?
I feel like people have different interpretations of that. Some people think digital is easier because they think the pressure's off.
Mm-hmm.
They can wear their shorts like I'm wearing right now. Like I'm dressed up from the waist up right now. I got my gym shorts on. I would not wear this on a on a public stage,
Love
but
the
I can wear it
honesty.
now. It's fine. Um, but and then some people think the stage is harder versus the digital stage being harder because there's all that pressure and there's just different levels of difficulty. There's technical glitches that can happen either way, or slideshow may fail, or your microphone may fail. There's it's just a different way to do the same thing. So I can't say if one is harder than the other. I think it's different for everybody and where they come from and their backgrounds and what their perception is. But I don't even like thinking any one of them is hard because that makes my brain struggle. I
Mm-hmm.
think there's challenges that come with each one, but you have a challenge every time you step out your front door.
Yeah, so true.
We're stronger than that,
Yeah.
right? So the fun thing about being in the room with people is you can feel the energy of the room. You can conduct the energy of the room. Have you ever been to the symphony where you have like a live band playing?
Yeah.
And so it's just like that, except for using words and not music.
Okay.
I remember we went to the Abravanel Hall up in Salt Lake City, Utah. They do this really cool thing where they take some of the best movies, like Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, all of these great movies, and they play the movie on the screen while the band, the
Yeah.
symphony, getting goosebumps. Like they play the soundtrack, and when you can hear Hans Zimmer, there's something different about hearing Hans Zimmer played on a violin than through a speaker.
Mm-hmm. Of
It's
course.
just brings tingles to your body. That the wavelengths are different, the vibrations are different, the energy is different, and the same happens in the room when you're with people. I mean, if you and I were in the room with each other in the same room, conversation might be the same, but it would be that much more intimate. And I think this
Yeah.
is something we were all robbed in 2020, from 2020 to 2023. We were robbed of this experience because of all of the restrictions that were imposed on all of us. And if you ask me, here's my conspiracy theory showing through. I think it was by design. I think it is well understood that when people come together, that's why we have the right to gather in
Mm-hmm.
our constitution. We have the right to gather, the right to assemble, the right to be in a room together, because there's so much power that can be found when you can share airspace with someone.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's an interesting way to put that as well. Like, because there was a lot of things, a lot of potential that COVID and the restrictions did take away, but in the same vein, it did also bring a lot of opportunities. And like when you like look at this, for example, like, if you want to look at it in terms of like a, say, like a 5-year plan, at COVID 5 years ago, I mean, like this could have been part of it. Like, I mean, everything becoming more digital, more remote, more people, I think, are connected now than ever. Now, albeit connected remotely to people from all corners of the world, but it's still, I think, is definitely opening up people's horizons in terms of the type of people they're meeting, who they may resonate with more. I know for sure that that's happened to me, like, especially through doing this, the amount of people that I've chatted to from all kinds of places in the world, it's like, who I never would have thought I would have. But to me, I would put that down to being a result of COVID, because I have the time to do this. And albeit, yes, there was like 2-3 years where couldn't do anything. But then after that, it was kind of like, well, I work I work full time, but I'm at home 2 days a week of that, so I have a little bit more time on my hands to actually kind of do these things. Whereas if COVID never happened, I don't know. Who knows? I don't know if I would have actually made it to this point in my life. It's kind of crazy to think about. Like, and it's like to go back to the point. Hindsight is 2020. Like,
It's so perfect. And COVID happened in 2020. Hindsight is 2020. It's so perfect.
I
But
didn't even think of it that way. Actually, that's
right.
that was completely unintentional.
But it speaks to the resilience of humankind.
Oh yeah,
You throw
100%.
restrictions on us, and we will circumnavigate them. We'll find a way. Businesses were born because of these restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
Podcasts were born because of the restrictions. You and I may have never met
Yeah,
if
exactly.
it weren't for what you discovered that you could do without being in person.
Mm. Yeah, and like, and more people are talking as well, which obviously in your line of work is a very important thing for speaking. And more people are doing that just in a different setting. And do you feel like in the last few years since COVID that there has been a big shift in terms of one, that the way people speak, and then two, in terms of how they deliver like presentations and stuff? Have you had to kind of like change things up in terms of your coaching?
You know, I've noticed that COVID, the entire experience we went through was a magnifier.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people, there were a lot of people that made pivots. There were a lot of people that made millions of dollars, and there were a lot of people that not only, you know, got sick, of course, but there were a lot of people who suffered because they were in person. I've heard many heartbreaking stories of marriages that were on the rocks and got worse because they were spending more time together.
Yeah.
There was increased levels of domestic abuse because people were the crime of opportunity. They were in the same room when they could have been escaping. And so what I noticed what COVID did to the speaking industry, it kind of did this to everything. It did it to people who were financially prepared versus financially not prepared. It did it to speakers. It did it to marriages. It did it to everything, where it magnified and accelerated what was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
It just compressed it into a very short period of time. And I use this as a blanket statement when I haven't done every study, but these are just my observations. So in terms of speaking, here's what I have noticed is that it at first shut down events. We couldn't gather.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't be in person. So the speakers that were resilient created digital summits. And now we have digital summits like crazy where people can learn from the comfort of their own home, no matter if they're living in a mud hut in the middle of the Mara on Kenya, which I've seen. It's insane. I don't know where they charge their phones, or they're living in Saudi Arabia and working from their home. And so it revolutionized these virtual summits, which force us as speakers to become better digital presenters.
Yeah.
It created businesses to support those speakers. Like there's these new apps and other applications that enhance your digital keynote with cute little slides and fancy things that move all over. But it also did this other crazy thing. It also made the people with egos and big buckets for need for significance that will never be full.
Mm-hmm.
It brought those people out too, because it really fertilized the age of the influencer, and not everyone deserves to be an influencer. And I use that word with caution because we all have influence. If you think about the word influence, we all have influence.
Oh yeah.
But when you get the 18-year-old, I'm a life coach and I can teach you how to live your life, even though I haven't lived enough life to merit being a life coach. It brought those people out too. And so it's flooded our senses. It's flooded our Instagram feeds. It's flooded our TikTok feeds with information, good, bad, left, right, upside down, and sideways, which has increased our needs as consumers to really hone in our discernment.
Yeah.
Do our own research. Become an educated person and find out original source material, because you can post anything on the internet. And that's a good thing, but it does increase our need to be discerning.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. And it is interesting you say that, because I 100% agree about the type of people that were brought out as a result, because like almost like Instagram, TikTok, whatever it may be, social media feeds were just filled with these self-qualified life coaches, these self-qualified speakers, these I can help you get rich quick. It's like, okay, because you're gonna make me subscribe to a program that's gonna just be vague information that you've like coined in an AI machine or something like that,
Right?
whatever it may be, and even now, like, I mean, I think that there is an element of that has like died down very recently, or at least maybe my algorithm is just a little bit kinder to me. I don't know, but um but the whole that does seem to be like the age of influencer now, people wanting to do that as a full-time gig, right? And
Hmm.
but of course, even with doing that, like, you have to be a good speaker, because that speaking is influence, isn't it? Like, if you're a good speaker, people will be influenced by what you have to say, how you deliver it. And if you like, to go back to what we said at the start, like, if you can deliver something to somebody that people understand right off the get-go, people really resonate, then you've kind of already, that's half the battle, really. You kind of,
Hmm.
you've done that. So do you think then, in the last few years, with this whole global reach in terms of everything being remote, like the clientele that you would have, has that kind of like opened the scope of business for them and even for yourself as well?
Absolutely. Because there's more stages to be on now than ever. So the one thing that every speaker says that they want is more stages.
Mm-hmm.
And while that might be true, then you go on the learning curve of, okay, what do I do with those stages and so forth. But I haven't met very many speakers that don't want more stages. And now there's more than ever to be had. Think about how many podcasts were born
Yeah.
in the last 5 years. I don't know how many podcasts there are, but there's probably over, what, 5 million. I'm just shooting in the dark here. I don't
Yeah.
know,
I'd
but
say about, I'd
there's,
say it's about right. Yeah.
there's so many of them, and some of them have a longer shelf life than others, but that's okay. There's these digital summits where it's like a virtual event. You can go and be a part of it, and those stages all need facilitators.
Yeah.
The publications and the newsletters, everything that's produced on the internet, we need speakers for that. And even people that decide, I need to make my own stage, a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's really smart too, because if you are an industry expert, if you do have real life experience, and I'm picky about who I put the microphone up to. I'm not going to hamper free speech. That's the thing. But my microphone, I won't put it up to anyone that I don't feel like is ready.
Yeah.
The people that they should be. I have a buddy of mine he teaches side hustles and how to make money through side hustles. There's not a lot of companies that will hire out for that because he's a threat. He's a threat to losing their employees, to them finding their own income. So he's creating his own events. There's a need for it. There's a gap for it. So the landscape for public speakers, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it's never been more fruitful, but there is definitely not an excuse to not be on stage. There's not a reason. If you think it's hard to find stages, first of all, just get rid of that perception because you're wrong. But start back to like we said about Google. Start Googling.
Yeah.
Start looking. They're everywhere. And if you can't find the stage, make your own.
Oh, 100%. Like, and I think now, like, with everyone's more exposure to the digital age in the last few years, more people want to be heard. More people are
Mm-hmm.
kind of realizing that they have that freedom of speech. They have and they have the resources to use that. They have the resources to be heard. And it does like seem that more people are putting that effort in to be heard and to get that sort of story out. Like you said, the amount of podcasts that are coming out, and albeit like not a lot of them make it past a few episodes, but at the same time, people are still doing it. And you'd know this yourself. Like, I mean, whenever you do a podcast, like, it really does help you improve your speaking and just your general demeanor, I find. Like, I mean, that's what happened to me personally. Like, I know regardless that there is like always room to improve, but at the same time, I mean, I know I wouldn't be ready for the stage, but I'm not planning on going on the stage anytime soon, kind of thing.
You do your podcast long enough, you might get asked.
Yeah, well, there we go. But like, it's kind of a funny thing, because like I'll look back to like 50 episodes ago, and I'll be like, okay, I felt very wooden back then, whereas now it's like there's a lot less yeah, like when you notice these things, it's very, very interesting. And I do think that it's a very positive tool for people. Now, and of course, like you say, not to hamper freedom of speech, but I would say for the most part, people who are wanting to use their voice are wanting to use it for good reasons, whether it be for people who still don't feel like they have a voice, or whether it may just be they feel comfortable in doing so. They feel like what they're doing is the right thing and it's good for them. And I think everybody should sort of utilize that sort of thing that they have to do.
I would hope so, but I've seen way too much evidence to the contrary.
Yeah,
You
well,
know,
there is that
there's,
too.
there, I remember I was driving northbound on the freeway. I remember exactly where I was. It was just past Utah Valley University here in Provo, Orem area. And, this was one of the deep, ugly spots of my
Mm-hmm.
life. My bank account was in the negative more often than not. I was staring down an ugly divorce that I didn't want. Nobody ever gets married expecting to get divorced. I was
Of
about to
course.
become a single mom of 5 kids. I was overweight. I mean, you think of any area of your life, your relationships, your health. I had significant struggles in all of them.
Yeah.
And it was one of those days where I felt like I was breaking under the pressure. And as a mom, when you do that, you still have kids that you have to feed and people that you had to take care of. So we put on this, I'll get through the next 5 minutes mask. But I had just dropped off all my kids at school and I was alone finally in my car. And my beat up old car, that I was just hoping made it to my destination. And I started I just, it all felt like it was crushing me and overwhelming me. And I'm a spiritual person, so I talk to God quite a bit. And because I was alone, Abraham Lincoln says, oftentimes we are driven to our knees because we had nowhere else to go. And I couldn't kneel down, but I was in my car praying,
Yeah.
and I was just talking to God, and I said, I'm kind of getting tired of complaining because it's the same story over and over and over again. And I feel like I should have built something different by now. And, and the message I got back was God saying, well, what if you just try this on? What if you just pretend that you did it? What if you
Mm.
just pretend for a minute that if you opened your phone, there was $50,000 in your bank account, which was a huge amount of money at the time? Something I wouldn't say no to today,
Yeah.
What if you just pretend that you had a beautiful relationship? What if you just pretend you act as if you had this really healthy body that was so fit? Let's just pretend for a moment. It made me think of that time. Have you ever seen that Disney movie Tangled with Rapunzel and her
Yeah.
hair, right? So they're on the lake and they have the lanterns, and Eugene says to her, now that you have what you prayed for, now what? And this was the feeling that came over me of, okay, I'm going to pretend. We're going to pretend driving north on the freeway that I did it. We're going to act as if, what would it feel like to open up my phone and see the money there? What would it feel like to go home to a loving marriage? What would it feel like to go to the home that I wanted to go home to? What would it feel like to just be relieved of this burden of not having it and have it? And I started to pretend harder and harder and harder until the tears started to run down my face of, oh my gosh, I did it. And yes, I was still pretending. My circumstances hadn't caught up yet. But the question was, now what? And that birthed this mission inside of me, because so many things were going so wrong because of the voices of those that would use their voice to do harm.
Yeah.
My marriage was falling apart because of the beliefs that were being marketed. I mean, I'm sugarcoating it just for the sake of the audience, but
Mm-hmm.
there are people out there to destroy families. There are people out there to destroy marriages. There are people out there who would convince us to take lives. It's messed up.
Yeah.
And they're using their voices and they are prolific. And so when I had this feeling of I did it, God said, okay, now what? And that's when it hit me that my mission and my purpose was to make good people
Yeah.
crazy wealthy, because they need those resources to keep doing what they're doing. And they need those resources to fight back on the garbage that is so abundant out there.
It's incredible. Like, just to get that sign, that sort of clarity just from sitting in your car talking to God and just like, what would it feel like if you did? Like, and then whenever you did that and you got that sign, what was it like after? Like, how did you then sort of carve your path to actually physically getting there into that position?
It starts this with this idea, and this is a hard idea to wrap your brain around a lot of the time, at least for me, of what would I be doing if money were no object?
Mm-hmm.
What would I be doing right now if money were no object? That reveals your mission pretty darn fast. And I don't think your mission is ever bestowed upon you in a pillar of light.
Yeah.
It's something that you have to pick because we have choice, right? And then came the steps of what would I do today if money were no object? Who, and it quickly turned into who would I help? And when gosh, I wish I had clicked this so much sooner, because if we are so calibrated to who can I help, any business that has ever started became successful because it helped people in some way. Now,
Yeah.
there are faulty businesses out there that crash because they can't last very long doing that. But any business that has survived more than a couple of years is surviving because it's helping people. And so when you become so calibrated to just helping people, people ask, it's crazy. And I know I'm oversimplifying it. But if you help people, they'll ask, can I pay you to help me more?
Yeah.
Do you do one-on-one coaching? Have you written a book on this? Where can I find out more? If you really help people, if you're not clouded by dollar signs or commission breath or anything like that, because that's not helping anybody. But if you really are just so bent on helping people and you leave it at that, man, I listened to people say this and it used to tick me off. And I was like, I want real steps. Give me real steps. But the real steps are meaningless unless you're first hell-bent on helping.
Yep.
And when you do, yes, then you can start listening to your audience. And where do you find you solve the most problems? Now you can write a book on how to do that, or you can build a website and tell people that you do that, or just give it away. But it has to start with this determination to help as many people possible. And then when you find that you're solving the same problem more than once, you put it in an e-course and sell it for $27.
Yeah.
And you just do that over and over and over again.
Like when you break it down like that, that's just incredible. And like, I think one of the more important things to do is that when you're in that position, when you are wanting to do something, wanting to go into business for yourself, I think sometimes a lot of people miss this, is the why. I think that like a lot of people maybe, like you say, are too sort of clouded with financial gain, which of course is part of the ultimate goal. I don't want to say it's the full ultimate goal, but it certainly is part of it, because we need to live, right? But it's the why. Why do you do this? Do you do this because there is a gap in the market? Which, if there's a gap in the market, you're still helping people because it's something that people are looking for or could potentially look for that could have some benefit for them, whether it be really kind of life changing for this person or just sort of convenience. It's still helping somebody regardless. And I kind of think when you say like helping people, it really is kind of, that's a huge thing. And I kind of think a lot of businesses are there to help people. And because like if you look at it, you go any supermarket, any store you go to, it's a help to you, isn't it? And like that works. Supply and demand, it helps it massively. But yeah, of course, I think that's how like kind of good businesses thrive, whenever they are kind of customer centric. Like, this is what we do. We do this to serve you. And then when people kind of find these like sort of people that they can trust, that's where it kind of like the healthy relationship comes in. And like, of course, it goes back to how well the speaker presents themselves to their potential client. Like
Absolutely.
it's a very interesting and fascinating cycle. Like, honestly, like it's just one of these things, like when I have these conversations, like I'm always blown away with how much I'm learning about these things that are just right in front of me. They're right in front of everybody, like a daily part of life. But you just sort of, it opens up your perspective a little bit more. Like, it's just incredible stuff.
Well, and it to me too, even as I'm talking, I find myself saying, okay, Marianne, you talk about this and you do this, but you really could apply this principle better still for you. Like
Hmm.
there are things that we're all afraid of. I've never met anyone I respect who doesn't have something that intimidates them.
Hmm.
I've met people who I don't respect who claim that nothing intimidates them and they're full of it. But no one I respect doesn't have something that intimidates them. So even as I'm talking, I was like, ah, you know what? I have self-disqualified because I think it's hard on this specific thing. And I need to check myself on that. I
Mm.
need to get better at that. It's I used to mentor under someone who claimed to have eliminated all of their limiting beliefs, all of them. And at first I was like, oh, that would be cool one day if that's possible, but I'm still working on it. And now that I've stepped away, I'm like, that just means you're unwilling to learn. I
Yeah.
never want to be like that. I never want to say that that's why I say I'm not a master of communication. I'm a student of it. I'm just constantly studying it. I'm not a master of, I have mastered a level of communication. I've mastered a level of finances. I've mastered a level of health, but I'm not done.
Yeah, of
I have
course.
so much to learn. And some people, we just want to learn all together, and that's how we do it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like, because I'm sure as well that whenever you are mentoring someone, whenever you're mentoring a client, there are probably things that you learn by proxy just from your clients that, and maybe in terms of the way that they take in the information that you're giving them, or how they utilize it. And I mean, it's the same way whenever, like, I'm doing like whenever I'm doing this, whenever I'm interviewing people, there's so much that I learn about communication, how to talk, and it's sort of like things like this have to be like a two-way street. And that's kind of like we're all constantly learning. No 2 days are the same, no matter what way you look at it. As much of a cliche as that is, it's just incredibly true.
Well, and none of us have ever done this day before. That's especially with my kids.
Mm,
We talk about this a lot because I have 6 kids. And while I do have more life experience, right, there are things that I can give them a heads up on because I've
yeah.
been there and I've made those mistakes already. But especially with my oldest daughter, I like to tell her, and she likes to remind me, hey, neither of us have ever done this day before. It's August 4th, 2025. We're all new here, guys.
Yeah.
Like, we're all trying to figure this out. And when we think about that together, we used to butt heads a lot, but that principle has helped us so much, give each other so much grace and so much forgiveness just to say, yeah, I know I'm the mom, but I've never done this day before.
Yeah, of course.
Let's figure it out together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of when you look at it in that perspective, it's sort of everything that you've been through years before, like especially in your situation where single parent to 5 kids, and then you built your own business by yourself, and then with your now husband, and like you've been through that. But of course, at the same time, you're still going to butt heads over what is happening on this day because you've never been here before. Same with
Mhm.
yesterday, same with today, same with tomorrow. Like there's always going to be things in the now, and like it's that sort of concept of mindfulness which I kind of think keeps us grounded whenever we are kind of like going for our future plans, and even when we're looking back on things that have happened, it's kind of like this is where I've been, this is where I'm going, but this is where I am right now. And like you can't really let past and future things kind of dictate your this, like literally right now 7 p.m. in the UK, 4th of August. I'm not gonna like dictate anything that happened 6 weeks ago to dictate now. Do you know what I mean? Or like what I'm gonna do like in an hour's time. It's just this is the now. Whatever problems may be are for right now, kind of thing. It's yeah, like and like mindfulness in terms of that. Like, and I love that sort of thing. Is that we've never done this day before. I love that as a philosophy because I'm very much a fan of the whole concept of mindfulness. It's like I say, I think it's certainly helps keep me grounded anyway.
Well, yeah, and C.S. Lewis, yeah, I'm sure you've heard of him.
Oh
He's
yeah.
one of the most wonderful authors of all time. His book, The Screw Tape Letters, and that's a mind-bending book to read. I
Mm.
have tried to get through it so many times. I learn something new every time. But this one principle that I take away from that is just like you were saying, anytime that we are obsessed with the past, that's just where depression comes from. Anytime we're obsessed with the future, that's where anxiety comes from. And this book illustrates that anytime forces that are against us can steal us from being present, they've won.
Yeah.
I d- this thought of, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, I hope you're being present with this podcast. I like to listen to podcasts in the sauna because nothing else is going on. I'm just totally focused and it distracts me from the heat. But it's, I hope that there's one gift, one takeaway, one thing that I know I've got 2 or 3 that you can take away and do something about it before you go to bed, whether it's Googling your next big dream or whether it's taking a practice in mindfulness, or maybe you found a quote or a snippet that you're like, oh, I'm going to remember that before I go to bed. I'm going to say that again. And I'm going to remember that for the next time things get challenging. That being present moment, because that's all we have.
Yeah.
It literally is all we have.
100%. And I absolutely love that you've said that, because that's exactly the aim I have with this podcast, is for, like, if one listener can take something away from it and they can be like, wow, I never knew that, or I'm going to put this into my, life going forward, like something for people to resonate with. That's literally like that's my why with this.
Good.
Like, and that's like, I love that you've said that, because I just think it's such an important thing. It's such an important thing because storytelling, it's such an important thing. Everybody has a voice, everybody has a story, and like, I just think people should help people, because I kind of do feel like at some point that notion did get kind of lost a little bit, and I kind of think it's nice just to kind of bring it back a little bit,
I totally agree. 100%.
Yeah, of course. Marianne, listen, it has been absolutely fantastic having you on the podcast. Thank you so much. It has been incredibly enlightening, insightful conversation. I would just like to give you the floor just before we sign off. Just where can the listeners find you?
Oh, absolutely. So if you're liking what you're hearing, first of all, make sure you should subscribe to Andy's podcast, because you got to hear more of what he's doing too. But listen, I mentioned before that my mission is to put the microphone up to messages I can get behind. And so we do that. My husband and I do that by providing a free resource that we just give away. It's a podcast database with over 1,000 shows that have all said they need guests. They all have application links included. So we just give that away. If you go to mariannehickman.com/database, you can pick up that. You can, it is locked because I don't let people edit it. You just have to give me your email so I can give you the unlock. But I just give that away to anyone whose messages I can get behind. That's how people can hang out.
Of course. And like I was saying, everybody has a voice, and you got to use it for the right reasons. Know your why, and absolutely check out what Marianne has to offer, because I certainly have loved this conversation. Hopefully those who are listening, there is a lot that you can take away from it. And yes, once again, Marianne, thank you so much for your time. Been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
It's been an honor, Andy. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And there you have it. That brings us to the end of episode 55 of Behind the Camera with Andy Games. Huge thank you to Marianne Hickman for sharing her stories, her insights, and for simply being an amazing guest. There's so much to be taken from our conversation, whether you're stepping into the realm of speaking or simply just trying to figure out your why. Once again, if you'd like to support the podcast, my link tree in the About section has everything from socials, merch, the website, all of the good stuff. A follow, rating, share, all goes a long way. Until next time, take care, stay creative, and I'll see you soon. But until then, peace.